Hey everyone, if this is your first time to my channel, hello and welcome. My name is Emily and today I have a really exciting video to bring you guys. I am bringing you my depotting video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I depot my palettes. Now this was actually suggested by a couple people on my Z palette video. I depotted all sorts of palettes and just stuck it into one palette. And I guess people want to know how to do it, and I have kind of a pretty simple technique that I think would be easy to follow. So if you are interested in that type of video and learning how to depot a palette, let's go ahead and get right on into the video. Hey guys, what's going on? So today I'm going to be showing you how I depot things. So today I'm going to be depotting the Blushing Berries palette by Dose of Colors. This palette, oh, my table is shaky. This is some risky business, but we will keep going. This palette I actually already have another one of. I am insane and I bought two of these palettes. So I'm going to go ahead and depot it and show you guys how I do it. I depotted my other one already and the shadows are scattered amongst my Z palettes. So basically the reason for depotting, in my opinion, is to take out the colors that you like from a palette. Especially if you don't like all the colors, you can go ahead and pop them out and then put them in a Z palette with similar colors or colors that you like, or you can create your own palette. I do that all the time and I love it, and it's super fun and super inspiring. I pick up my Z palettes and I know exactly what looks I want to do. So I really enjoy depotting and I find it really useful. And it's not everyone's cup of tea, that is for sure, but I am a huge fan and this was requested by a couple people. So I hope that this is helpful for you, and let's go ahead and get right on into depotting. Today we are going to need the palette that you want to depot, a spatula or a spoon, a butter knife, something thin and really slim that you can kind of pry into the side of the shadow. They do make these depotting spatulas and you can buy them online. Like I said in my Mad Science makeup video, you can find these on Amazon. You can also find them on Z Palette, but I know a lot of people don't like to buy from Z Palette, so you can find them on Amazon. They are pretty inexpensive and they are super nifty little guys to have, especially if you like depotting. I highly suggest investing in one of these. It's not even really an investment because they're pretty darn inexpensive, so these are nice to have around. So then you're going to need a flat surface. I have this little cutting board here, and I do have the table already, but this table, as you can see, is a little bit janky. I am currently at my mom's house, and my typical table that I use for doing these types of videos is at my boyfriend's house. So I stole one of her tables, and for some reason, it likes to lean to one side, and it is deciding to do that, so bear with me here. But I went ahead and put this guy on here just to protect the table. It's not my table, so you can use whatever table or surface that you'd like to. I do suggest putting down a tissue paper or paper towel, or maybe just a regular towel, just something to protect the table because we are using the straightener today, and sometimes shadow can kind of fly around everywhere. We're gonna hope that it doesn't, but it can, let me tell you. You want to make sure to take that extra precaution just so that you don't have to clean out a bunch of stuff afterwards. So then we are going to need a straightener. This is just some basic straightener that I found in my mom's bathroom. Anything will work, just something flat. Don't use a curler or anything because the heat on a curler is basically just the whole cylinder of the curler is heated. With a straightener, it's more of kind of a targeted area. It's just these two plates that are heated. So this is perfect for melting the glue in the palette. You are going to need some tin foil, just like so, just a little tiny piece. And we are actually going to be placing it in between the palette and in between the straightener. So this basically acts as a barrier to make sure that we don't actually melt the plastic of the palette onto your straightener, and then you don't use it later and end up burning plastic into your hair, because let me tell you, that is not fun. I am 100% sure that I've done that before because I have made my fair share of mistakes with depotting. And last but not least, you are going to probably want to have a Z palette of some sorts. This is just a tiny little Morphe Z palette. This one is beat up to all hell, so I'm sorry, it's disgusting, I know. He has been with me for a long time and we have been through a lot together. And I cleaned him the best I could before this, but he has got some battle scars. But you are going to need a Z palette or whatever palette that you want to use to go ahead and pop your new shadows into. So the first thing that we're going to do is put the straightener onto our surface. For me, that's this little cutting board just to protect the table. We are going to put our tin foil just ever so slightly right onto the surface. Just be careful with your fingers not to touch the middle right here. You can go ahead and touch the sides and move it around and whatnot, but I wouldn't touch the middle of the tinfoil because that's going to heat up pretty darn fast. Tinfoil is really, really thin and it gets heated up very quickly. Then we are going to need our palette. So we are basically going to just place the palette right on top of the tinfoil. And now we are going to wait about a minute or so. So in each palette, behind the actual pan of the eyeshadow and in between the plastic of the packaging, there is a little tiny dot of glue that the company uses to basically hold the shadows in. Some companies actually use a little magnetic strip on the inside of the packaging that just makes it super, super easy to depot. And I really like when companies do that, but not every company does that. So in this case, there is glue on the back. So we're basically heating up that glue so that when we go in to pry the shadow out, the glue will be nice and melted and not hard and sticky, and it will make it a lot easier to take the shadows out of the packaging. So let's go ahead and remove this from the heat. I'm going to go ahead and remove the tinfoil from the heat as well. Just be careful not to touch the center of the tinfoil because it is hot. I'm going to go ahead and put the tinfoil over the mirror just so that you guys aren't blinded. So I went ahead and put the tinfoil over the mirror just so that you guys aren't blinded. And we are going to take our depotting spatula. Now this one actually comes with a more flat end and a more pointed end. I prefer to use the more pointed end because it's a little bit more precise when getting into the little crevice in between the packaging and the actual pan of eyeshadow itself. Not all of them have this, some of them are just the flat side. You can go ahead and use that if you'd like to. It just takes a little bit more maneuvering and you have to be a little bit more careful. So we're going to go ahead and start depotting here. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this black shadow. And we are going to basically put the pointed end of our little spatula here just right into the side of the shadow. So you see how I'm kind of wiggling back and forth very, very slowly. You do want to wiggle slowly because if you just jam it right into there, oftentimes it can bend the pans or it can really, you can slip and stab your shadow, which I have done a million times. I was practicing depotting last night so that I got this video decent, and I slipped and stabbed one of my shadows and it broke into a bunch of pieces. So be really, really careful. I am very reckless when it comes to depotting, so you definitely don't want to be. This is something that you're going to want a lot of patience with. And you see, you're basically just going to kind of go around the sides and lift up just ever so slightly. This pan is essentially almost out. And go ahead and just pry up when you start to notice that the sides are coming up. Try and really push the spatula right down underneath the shadow. And you see how this is coming out really, really nicely here. Oh, we have a little bit of breakage, but nothing too bad, which, oh, he fell right back down in there. Okay, round two. So if they fall back in, the glue is already separated, so all you have to really do is slide the spatula underneath. And what I have found a really good technique, oh my gosh, this table is so janky. I'm about to drop this straightener right onto my computer. Anyway, what you want to do is take the spatula and keep it underneath and almost kind of do a clockwise motion and just go right around and then pop up. So from here, you want to just basically gently use the scraper to remove the extra glue. And from this point, I usually put the scraper right underneath the shadow. Oh, okay, bad example, but I usually put the scraper right underneath the shadow, just like so. And then I'll put one thumb just right on the edge of the pan and then pry up, and then it's out. So as you can see, I got a little bit of breakage, but it's so small that I'm okay with it. A lot of times with depotting, you want to make sure that you're really, really careful and really gentle, but even if you are, it can still crack on you, my friends. Like, don't get me wrong. You want to do everything you can to not make it crack on you, but sometimes it will still crack on you. These Dose of Color shadows, I've noticed, are pretty easy to depot. They crack a little bit, but it's nothing too bad, and they're pretty pliable when it comes to getting them out of the actual packaging itself. Okay, so now we're going to take our Z palette and we're going to pop the black shadow right in there. Voila, we have one. 4 to go. Basically just going to repeat the steps. So we're going to put the tinfoil onto the straightener. Let that heat up a bit. And then we will pop this guy back on there. And we will let him sit and let the glue get all nice and soft and make it really easy for us to pry these suckers out of here. So I think that's pretty good. Honestly, if you didn't want to use heat, you don't have to. 9 times out of 10, I do not use heat. But I don't want to teach you guys something that could possibly break your shadows. And this is the most safe and effective way, I feel like. I feel like a lot of people choose this method. And this seems to be the most effective way to get the shadows out without actually breaking them too bad. Like I said earlier, you always risk breaking a shadow or cracking a shadow or losing just a little bit of product when you depot. You have to go into it knowing that, because you will definitely crack a shadow every now and then. Not every single time, but every now and then it is bound to happen. So as you can see, this one came out really easily, and I just kind of pried around. Oh my god, this table. This table is not having it right now, but this is not going to stop me. And one thing that I forgot to mention is that when you're looking at these shadows, you really want to choose the side that looks like it has the most space in between the packaging and in between the pan, just like so. You see how there's a pretty big space there, but over here, it's actually pretty tight over here. There isn't a very big space, and if you were to shove your spatula in there, you risk bending the pan, you risk stabbing the shadow with the spatula. So you want to choose the area that looks like it's the most, you know, spacious away from the actual packaging itself. So we're just going to stick the spatula underneath and do little scraping motions and then do that little clockwise thing. And from here, I can just go ahead and pull it out with my fingers. Okay, so we have this guy out here. A little bit came off of the edge, but this was actually shadow that was kind of spilling out over the edge of the actual packaging itself. So that is why that popped out. This shadow is not cracked. He is in good health. So we are going to go ahead and put him in our Z palette. So here's the Z palette, and let's pop this little fella right in there. And I repeat and keep on going here. So I'm going to go ahead and probably speed through the rest of this, and you can just watch the technique and see basically how it's done. So we're just going to keep putting the tinfoil on, these shadows on. If you hear anything in the background, that is my cat. He's a little troublemaker. My cat is literally going ham right now. Do you hear that? What are you doing down there? For the last one, we're just going to pry her in on the side, do our little spinning motion, and lift up. And here is the empty palette. Isn't that satisfying? I really do love this packaging though. I still have my packaging even though it has no shadows in it. I still have my other one that I bought. So I don't really know what I'm going to use it for. Maybe if I ever travel anywhere. That doesn't happen very often, but if it does, I'm prepared. It's so pretty. So this is basically what we're left with. We have the eyeshadows from the palette, but they are no longer in the actual packaging. They are in a Z palette. So if I wanted to, I could take one of these guys and put it in another palette and basically make my own out of these, which is awesome. I love doing this with palettes. I do it with almost all my palettes. So with that, guys, that is going to conclude my depotting video. I do hope that you found it useful and helpful, and I hope that you try it at home. Let me know how it goes. Leave it in the comments if you try it out and it works for you. I would love to know that it actually worked for you, because it works for me. I do hope that you enjoyed this video, and I do hope that you will consider subscribing down below. I got all sorts of makeup goodness happening here on this channel. I hope that you are having an absolutely amazing day wherever you are, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!